Wake up, sleepyheads.
It's party time! Yeah! This is the old Nooster coming at you right here on this fine, fine Rocktober morning. It's the sweeping sensation that's sweeping the nation, and I'm gonna do it to you right here, right now. Wow!
I got a new rock group for you, Toady. This is their latest album, which I'm going to show the camera right here. But before we see them perform, I want you to meet one of the members of this act close up. Here from Kiss is Gene Simmons.
Excuse me while I spread my wings.
Oh, yeah, go right ahead. Hey, can we do a close shot of the shoes, please? Look at these shoes. I mean, let's turn them this way so we can see them. That is something
Incidentally, he's up for adoption.
Hi there, and welcome to the new episode of Kiss and Tell podcast. Today is our Hallowgene episode, our tribute to the demon, all things Gene Simmons. We're going to have friends from the podcast that are going to stop by and give their personal shout outs to Gene. We're going to have friends from other podcasts. They're going to be playing songs by Gene, and it's going to be a great show. If you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor, smash that subscribe button on the bottom. We appreciate your patronage. And today we have a wide range of yahoos on our panel, but they all have something in common. We all have, at one time or another, been part of South Fulton High School, middle school. So it's like a reunion of sorts, you could say. It's the first time we've all been together, probably since 87, 88, somewhere like that. And we're real happy to have all you guys on this show. And to our top right, we have Andy Lacewell. Andy, say hello.
Hey, Chris, thanks for the invite.
And in the middle, we got Brent Wilson. And before Brent talks, I want to give a shout out to his father. His dad was always a very positive role model for me. I first had his dad when I was, I think, in third or fourth grade in Trenton, Tennessee. His dad was my principal. And then a few years later, me and my family moved to South Fulton. And I remember walking in the high school and I looked up and it was Mr. Wilson and I couldn't believe it. And he gave me a big hug, and he's just an awesome guy. And this is his son, Brent. Brent, say hello to the people out there.
Hey, everybody. Hey, old devils. The guys that are on. I want to give a just shout out to my daughter, Addison, because obviously this is real nerdy for her to be watching if she watches it. And to my son, Parker, who anybody that's on YouTube is an automatic superstar and some kind of hero to somebody. So what's up?
Nice. Below Brent is the one and only Cookie Monster, Colin Cook. What's going on with you, man?
Not a whole lot, Chris. Thanks for allowing me to be on this. And I want to give a shout out to my mom. You probably know her as Mrs. Morris, Mrs. Strickland now. But yeah, for all of you that had her in middle school, there you go. Chris, I'm disappointed you didn't mention her as being a role model for you, but that's okay.
I was always terrified of your mom. She'd always catch me in the refrigerator. I would think that nobody was looking, and then I'd be in there looking. All of a sudden, out here, what are you doing in the refrigerator? I'm like,
I'm just kidding. No, it's great. Thanks, man. This is a lot of fun.
No, your mom is an awesome person. And up to the top left, we have Jeff Val.
Hey, everybody.
All right. So we're going to get this show started. Excuse me. And we're going to start with the first question, and I'll just go randomly. I'll call you. So the first question for the panel is, tell us about the first time you ever saw Gene Simmons, you know, your age and what was your reaction. And we're going to go over to my co-host, Mike, 100,000 watts. Mike, what do you have to say about that?
Well, the first time I seen Gene, I think it was on a news clip that they had on TV when I was around 5 years old. That's when I can remember seeing Gene for the first time. But I remember hearing their music as early as 4, because what it was is all my cousins were from Memphis and they loved Kiss to death. So they were playing Kiss when I was 2, 3, 4, and 5. And, you know, when I was 6, I could realize who he was, but I really didn't get to see any good footage of him until about 12 years old. But since I was 5 years old, I had my Kiss lunchbox. And my reaction to Gene Simmons was I actually thought he was a vampire/demon superhero because I was 5 years old. So that was my impression from it.
Okay, Andy Lacewell, do you remember the first time you ever encountered Gene Simmons?
I do, and it was because of Mike Watts. Probably second or third grade. Mike had some Kiss trading cards that, I don't know, ended up with me somehow or another. And I remember seeing Gene Simmons and thought he was the devil. And that has stuck with me now for 40 years. But yeah, it was because of Mike Watts that I was introduced to Gene Simmons.
I remember one time I ran away and I went to Colin's house. And Colin was like, man, I was like, should I run away, Colin? And Colin's like, definitely.
I do not remember that.
And I think I took you to the bus station.
You did, on the back of your little blue moped.
I did.
I said, Andy, take me to the bus station.
That's funny.
All right, Jeff Al, you're up. When's the first time you ever ran into Mr. Gene Simmons?
Well, I haven't put a lot of thought into that, but I guess I'd have to say in the cafeteria of South Fulton Elementary School, probably.
Oh, wow.
Looking at Mike Watt's lunchbox. I had my Evel Knievel lunchbox, and we probably sat together and was arguing about who could win a fight between Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee. You know, those kind of conversations happened a lot. So looking over and seeing that on his lunchbox, probably the first time I ever saw Gene Simmons.
I think Mike influenced the whole town of South Fulton with his cards and his lunchboxes, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Man, Mike, you should have got some money for that. All that promotion you gave them guys in the elementary school. All right, let's go to Brent Wilson.
I didn't have a cool lunchbox like Mike did because, Chris, can you imagine my father buying me that lunchbox?
No, I cannot.
No, at best, I had the Dukes of Hazzard lunchbox. That was the best.
And
that's when we was in Trenton. So what I can remember is going to my cousin's house. He was, 5, 6 years older than me, down in Cloverdale in Oban County, and walking in his room, and there's nothing. The walls are completely covered with Kiss posters, magazine cutouts, and all I can remember is being just scared to death, terrified. 6, 7 years old, thinking, "Holy shit, this is terrifying." So after that, I mean, that's my first remembrance of Gene, and then the rest of the whole band, really.
Yeah, I don't think Mr. Wilson would have allowed you to have a Kiss lunchbox, definitely. Now,
No.
Colin Cook may not remember when he first saw Gene Simmons, but I'm sure he'll remember the first day he saw John Bon Jovi. So let's go down to Colin Cook.
Well, I think I don't have a moment in time I remember, but I'm sure it's because Mike taught Andy and Andy taught me, right? Because we lived across the street from one another. And I think Jeff's right. We probably sat at the lunch table and saw the lunchbox, and that's how we were introduced to it. But I do remember, what was the acronym that we used to say? Like, I'd go to church and they'd be like, "Hey, KISS stands for Kids in Satan's Sunday School," or something.
Satan Service.
Satan Service. So that's kind of my initial recollection of KISS or Gene Simmons, and it was probably a little scary for I'm pretty easily scared, but especially at 6, 7, 8 years old. So that's my early recollection of Gene Simmons. And in the lunchroom, we used to talk about who could tackle an NFL running back. That's what I remember.
None of you?
Not well. It was 50-50 on who thought they could and who thought they couldn't.
Yeah. Walter Payton. Could you tackle him?
Yep. Tony Dorsett. All those guys.
kind of piggybacking off that, I want to know, I kind of know what Brent's answer is going to be, but I kind of want to know what your parents' reaction was, if you can remember it all, to Kiss or to Gene. Like, did they forbid it, or they were cool with it, or they didn't care? Or, for example, when I was young, my mom really didn't care that I listened to Kiss. But like Colin just mentioned, she went to church one day and they had like all these heavy metal hard rock bands on this list saying they were all Satanist, right? Like Judas Priest and Ozzy and Kiss and AC/DC stands for Antichrist Devil Child, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they were filling my mom's head with all this stuff. And I remember she came home one day, and I've been listening to Kiss for years, right? She came home one day and she went into my room. She's like, "You're not listening to this devil music anymore." I'm like, "They're not." I said, "It's not devil music. They're talking about girls and partying." And she was like, "No, they worship Satan because the preacher said they worship Satan." And she took my album, my Alive 2 album, and she picked it up and she smashed it and broke it. And
oh my
she
gosh!
stormed out of the room, and I was so pissed. I was like, "I'm never going to church." So that's kind of like, my mom was cool with it at first, and then she heard some stuff, and she didn't want me listening to it. And like a month later, she didn't care that I was listening to it again. So let's start with Brent this time.
I didn't listen to Kiss. I do remember being babysitted by a bunch of high school kids over somebody's house one night, and they were playing "Shout at the Devil" by Motley Crue. That scared the hell out of me. And but it wasn't until actually I moved to South Fulton. Okay, now I was hanging out with Scott Taylor. Scott's a huge Kiss fan, right? And Scott says, "Do you want to borrow my album?" I said, "Which one?" He said, "Kiss Alive 2."
Oh, you never gave it back. I like you, Brent.
I'm not sure, but I thought he told me he borrowed this from Mike Watts.
He did.
Did he?
Yeah, I was Scott Taylor's best friend for a long time. I could ride my bicycle to his house.
Are we about to have a reunion live on the Kiss and Tell podcast?
I think this is your album.
Yeah, it is.
That's crazy.
I mean, everybody's probably got something of somebody's, because I remember we got the Vanna White book where she
oh
was.
My gosh. Yes.
And we kept that at Colin's drawer, but I forgot who got the book.
You're editing this, right, Chris?
Yes, I'm editing.
Right. Okay. I'm just kidding. That's hilarious, Mike. But the fact that Brent's got your albums, that's awesome.
Brent, do you have the cover?
No, I don't know what happened to it. It got mixed in with all my mom's crappy Elvis albums, and like not the good stuff, like Hello from Hawaii. And
I got the cover here. I'm just missing one that my mom destroyed. You can send me that one. Michael, understand?
Oh my gosh,
that's awesome! You still got that cover.
Wow, that's the cover. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look more. It's got to be around here somewhere.
Just send me that side 2. I got side 1. Oh, that's awesome, man! A reunion live on Kiss and Tell podcast, Mike Watts. So let's go to Colin Cook.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess kind of like Brent, I didn't really listen to Kiss. I mean, other than with you guys, right? So I don't recall that my mom, my parents had any kind of reaction to me listening to them. Although I'm sure, like I mentioned, there was just stuff going around. When we went to church, they'd talk about Kiss and what it stood for. But that never affected me. I don't know. I don't remember listening to them hardcore like you guys did. So I was listening to the sweet melodies of John Bon Jovi, I guess, and Heart and some of those others.
Some of those other headbangers.
Yeah,
all
exactly.
Right. All right, we're going to go over to Jeff Val. Jeff, did your parents ever say anything about you or about the band?
Not really. It's going to be a familiar theme here, I guess. I did listen to them, not nearly as much as Mike and Andy, but I guess my parents probably, if they didn't know about it, it didn't exist. So they kind of went with that school of thought. So I didn't catch a lot of grief over my music. I listened to ZZ Top and things like that. And she'd look at them guys with the long beards and go, what in the world are you listening to? I don't really have any, they never really had anything to say about Kiss.
All right. So Andrew Laceville, you're up.
Well, I found out the hard way that my mother did not like Kiss because, once again, second or third grade, I ended up with some Kiss trading cards. Now, whether Mike gave them to me or I took them from him, I don't know. But I remember hiding them in our linen closet in our bathroom under some towels. Now, you would think I would put them like under my mattress or in
your water bed.
But for some reason, I hid them under some bath towels in our bathroom. And I remember going back to get them 2 or 3 days later, and they were ripped to pieces. So.
Might have been Kiki.
Yeah, no, I think it was Martha. Someone had ripped those trading cards into pieces and left them there. So, yeah.
She never said anything. She just ripped them up.
Nope.
That's awesome.
I need to have her on the podcast and have her admit to you live on Kiss and Tell podcast that she indeed ripped up those cards, because maybe you're falsely accusing her.
Yeah, but can you blame her? I mean, he's in the second or third grade and he's got these cards with these people with makeup on. It's kind of. Did we listen to him that early?
I did. I listened to him when I was like 6.
And Chris, you said Kiki. It was Kiko, right? The dog?
Yeah, Kiko. Sorry.
I forgot about that. Oh, that puppy.
Andy,
he was sweet.
You remember this Loverboy song? I'm in a room full of danger. I'm like a Kiko in a chamber. You remember that, Andy? I used to always sing that to that song. Speaking of dogs, I remember Colin Cook's joke about the dog with the brick in his mouth.
That's good. Yeah. Oh, man.
Mike Watts, were
Yes, sir.
your disco-loving parents, were they anti-Kiss?
No, not really, because what it was is my dad loved rock and roll anyway. He wasn't too enthused with Kiss, but they bought me Kiss Alive 1 when I was 5 years old because I tortured them until they did buy it for me, because I was a persistent little kid. And all my cousins from Memphis were listening to Kiss, so I had to have Kiss Alive 1. So
at 5 years old?
Yeah, I was 5 years old. I had Kiss pajamas at 5 years old. I had Kiss cards in kindergarten. I remember going to the principal's office because I took them to school. When my mom's got a picture of me in first grade, and I got my tongue stuck out and my hands going like this. So my parents treated Kiss like Star Wars figures. They just thought they were toys for kids. They thought, well, that's a kid's band. They're acting like superheroes. One of them's a spaceman. One of them's a star child. Churches don't know what they're talking about. It's just a toy group. They thought of it as a toy group. They thought, oh, they ain't real like Foreigner, or they're not real like Elvis. They're hiding behind their makeup because they're impressing our little kid. So they didn't mind me listening to Kiss. And as far as them ever, throwing anything away, what I did is after I got Kiss Alive 1, I got grounded for like a whole year from ever getting a Kiss album again. Because I personally myself took crayons and stuff and drew on the album cover thinking I could make it look better because I wanted more action in it. So I kind of like drew extra stuff on their faces and stuff. And I got a whipping for defacing my album cover. So I actually got
You deserve that.
For destroying the Kiss Alive 1 album cover, which I did. And I also cut the letters out like they were actually addressed to me. And I had them like index cards. So, yeah, I really tore that album up. So I got grounded for a whole year from ever even getting another Kiss album. So when I did, I'd get a Kiss album every year until I was like 13 years old. Then I just started buying them myself.
I knew I liked your parents for some reason. So, yeah, I think Colin was, he was late to the party probably because of his age. But in the late 70s, man, all the kids like in first, second, third, fourth grade, they were all huge Kiss fans. I remember being in second grade and going to the school Halloween carnival thing. And you know how you pay to get the face paint? And they had all the members of Kiss up there. So you could choose members of Kiss. And this was like second grade. So at that time, it was not, taboo or nothing. But later in the 80s, when all these Baptist preachers started coming out, calling them Satanists and stuff like that, that's when the parents started cracking down, I guess. But we're going to turn it over now to a friend of the show, Brian Sims. You might know him on Facebook better as Johnny Blaze Jr. And he's going to give his tribute to the demon, Gene Simmons.
Hey, this is Big B Brian Sims. I just wanted to speak on Gene Simmons, the bass player for Kiss, for a minute, on the impact he had to me as a bass player for Kiss in the 1970s. When Kiss, the title album, came out in 1974, I was actually in first grade. And then, of course, they had the follow-up albums, Love Gun, Hotter Than Hell, Destroyer, Alive. Kiss was just like bigger than life to me. They had the movie Psycho Circus. They had their comic books. Kiss has over 300 product categories. 3,000 product categories. So you had the Kiss lunch boxes, the action figures. You had all the stuff going on. I go to the mall, they had the Kiss pinball machines. And of the original members of Kiss, the Kiss Demon was always the one that got my attention the most. Because, you see the videos, and Gene has got these giant boots on, and he's like, vomiting, apparent blood. He's spitting fire. Dude's just going, like crazy. And he was a good bass player. I mean, later on, he had the BC Rich Punisher bass made just for him. Then he had the Kramer, the big axe bass. The thing is, Kiss, the music had to be substantial to keep that act going. They had to be bigger than the makeup. But yeah, when I was a kid, man, Kiss was just a different thing. They weren't like any metal band ever. And Gene Simmons, who did a lot of the backing vocals, some lead vocals, visually, he was the straw that stirred the drink. He was just like a cool dude, and he's actually a cool guy. Later on, he went to produce the metal band EZO. So Kiss, they definitely built it in the 70s, and they kept it going. But, me as a kid, the Demon was the Kiss member that stood out.
Okay, the thing that separates our podcast from a lot of other Kiss podcasts out there's probably close to 300 Kiss podcasts out there. There's a lot of them. Is that we'll make fun of the band, and we'll make fun of, members of the band, and we'll criticize crappy songs and crappy albums and crappy ideas. So in that vein, I'm going to give you guys 4 options of bad ideas that Gene Simmons came up with, and I want you to choose the one you think was the worst. So here are the options. The first option is the Kiss casket. So when you die, you could be buried with your favorite band. And I believe Dimebag Darrell of Parental is buried in a Kiss casket, if I'm not mistaken. Kiss condoms for when you have that intimate moment and you don't want to be a father just yet, right? The LA Kiss arena football team. And the last terrible idea is when Gene Simmons put the song When You Wish Upon a Star on his solo album. So we got When You Wish Upon a Star on Gene's solo album. We got Kiss condoms, we got the Kiss casket, and we got the arena football team, the LA Kiss. So Andy, which one do you think was the worst idea out of those 4?
Yeah, the football team was absolutely the worst idea.
Brent, which one was the worst idea by the Demon?
The football league, because I mean that's just not Kiss. Now I will say this: I did like the field. I like the designs. But I like the blue field at Boise State.
My daughter's saying hi to everybody.
I like the red field at Eastern Washington. I get tired of looking at green fields, so I like the designs and everything like that he put together. But in terms of marketing, stick with the other stuff like the lunch boxes and the condoms and toothbrushes, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Mike Watts, if you buy season tickets for the LA Kiss, I'll have Tommy Thayer come to your house personally and play Shack Me.
Oh God, that would be horrible. I would not like that whatsoever.
All right, so we're up there with Jeff Al. Jeff Al, the casket, the condoms, the football team, LA Kiss, or when he put "When You Wish Upon a Star" on his solo album.
And I have no idea what the worst would be, but I'm going to tell you, I think the most self-servingly brilliant one is the condoms. That's brilliant.
Colin, you're up, man.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay? I had to switch. I got to charge my phone.
Yeah.
I would say probably, I guess, the song, right? I didn't mind the football, Andy. I mean, first of all, there was a reality show, I think, when he had that, and it kind of brought you back to Gene during that time. So I guess the song, that doesn't seem like him, right, to sing something like that. But maybe that juxtaposition of Gene Simmons singing that type of song is good. But that would be my vote, I guess.
All right, so we got a vote for "When You Wish Upon a Star," and now we're over to Mike, 100,000 watts.
Did you say a Kiss casket?
Yes.
Like you're getting buried in there?
Yes.
Dimebag Darrell was buried in one.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know that about Dimebag Darrell, but that's messed up because I like Dimebag Darrell. But
and if you open Mike, if you open the lid on the Kiss casket, it plays "Rock and Roll All Night."
It does actually, and could be used. It could be used.
I'm going to go with Kiss casket. I didn't even know that existed. That's a damn shame.
It costs like
That's
$5,000 for it.
Ego. That's ego right there, written all over Gene and Paul's face right there.
Was that a question about Gene? Ego?
Ego. Gene has an ego?
Hey,
wow. His casket? That's terrible.
So if you're walking
that's awful.
If you're walking through a grave,
leave people alone when they die?
Yeah, you hear it coming from a grave. You know that.
It's time to exit in a hurry.
Yeah,
that's right.
So it's got to be a pretty bad idea if it offends Mike Watts. Let's go to Sweeney.
I have to go with the song. I really would have to go with the song. I mean, I love his solo album. It showed a big diversity with everything that Gene Simmons did. And if you want to relive your childhood, something that you enjoyed, hey, that's great. But with full choir and strings and everything.
All right, so now we're going to turn it over to a fellow Kiss podcast called Kiss Meets the Podcast. It's hosted by Eli and Luke Naley. Luke, take it away, and let's hear your rendition of the Kiss classic, "Watching You," off the album Hotter Than Hell. Rock it, Luke.
really know what to do. And I'm standing here, not quite aware. And I'm trying, baby, trying not to stare. 'Cause everybody else is here. Yes, everybody else is here. Everybody else is here watching you. Cause everybody else is here. Yes, everybody else is here. Everybody else is here watching us.
Hey guys, what's up? My name is Luke Neely, and I am from Kiss Meets the Podcast. You will recognize us from our super popular series 4K, the Crazy Crazy Kiss Countdown, where we are reviewing all of the Kiss albums. It's been a whole lot of fun. What you just heard was, of course, the super popular Kiss song, Watching You. Gene Simmons. Can't beat Gene Simmons right there. That right there was actually a recording by a project that I do with one of the other hosts of Kiss Meet the Podcast, Eli Clausen. He was the drummer there. My dad, Dan Neely, played bass, and our good friend Harry Mills was the one singing. Everything that you just heard, besides what you saw me playing there, was actually recorded live in the room. A lot of fun to do. We just get together and jam some Kiss songs. Sometimes it's a lot of fun. So, Gene Simmons, man, what an interesting person. And somebody that a lot of people have mixed opinions about. I gotta tell you, I think the guy is an insanely underrated bass guitarist. Some of the stuff that I've seen that guy or heard that guy do on bass is absolutely insane. And when I hear people talk about Kiss in general as being not very good musicians, but especially they seem to target Gene. And I don't understand why. Listen to the bass part of Naked City, listen to the bass part in Detroit Rock City, one of their most famous songs. That is an incredibly difficult bass part. And according to Bob Ezrin, that's Gene. That's not a studio musician or anything. So, inspirational, too. I mean, to come to America not even speaking the native language, with nothing at all. His mother had been in internment camps, and to grow up to be one of the world's biggest rock stars, somebody who will live on long beyond him physically living. What a thing to accomplish. Corny as it is that he did When You Wish Upon a Star on his solo album, you gotta admit it was a little bit fitting. Makes a lot of sense. Anyway, hey, Kiss and Tell guys, Criss, 100,000 watts, many thanks for having me on today to do this. This was a whole lot of fun. Glad I got to play a little bit for you guys. Rock on. We'll see you next time.
What an awesome solo. What an awesome song by Luke. Way to go, Luke. Now we're going to move on to Kiss trivia, or more precisely Gene Simmons trivia. And we're going to start with our good friend Jeff Al. And the First question, Jeff, is what is Gene Simmons' real name? What is his birth name?
Eldrick.
All right. And that is incorrect. Sweeney, do you know this one?
Okay, let me get the phlegm part. Yeah. Chaim Witz.
Yes, Chaim Witz. It's CHIAM WITZ. Chaim Witz. Let's go over to the Cookie Monster. Colin,
Yes.
what was the name of the magazine produced by Gene Simmons that came out in 2001? What was the title of the magazine?
Oh.
Was it Oh? Oh, no, that's wrong. Sweeney, do you know the title of the magazine?
Tongue Magazine.
Yep, that's right.
That
Tongue
would have been a good choice.
Magazine. Short-lived Tongue Magazine.
Yeah, very short-lived.
Andy Lacewell. Speaking of tongues, how long is Gene Simmons' tongue, Andy Lacewell?
9 inches.
9 inches. That is incorrect. Sweeney, do you know this one?
If I remember correctly, it's between the 6 and 7 inch range.
So the correct answer is 7 inches. His tongue is 7 inches long. So now we'll go over to Brent. Brent, what was the name of the football team that Gene Simmons owned? What were they called? The name of the football team, the arena football team.
In his league?
The name of the football team, the arena team that Kiss owned.
Wasn't it Kiss?
What was the full name? That's part of the name.
Was it LA Kiss?
Yes, very good.
Yeah.
LA Kiss.
I thought it was like a trick question. Okay.
You got it, Brent.
All right.
I couldn't have gotten that one.
We're back to Jeff Al then. Jeff Al, how tall is Gene Simmons?
With or without the boots?
Without the boots.
What was the question?
How tall is Gene Simmons?
Oh, he's tall.
6'4".
All right. Sweeney, what you got?
I think he's 6'2".
The correct answer is 6 foot 2 inches.
Sweeney, I'm a little bit worried, man.
Hey, I can't help it. You remember, I was a Kiss Army member.
We're going back to Colin, the Cookie Monster. How many languages does Gene Simmons speak fluently?
2.
What do you say, Sweeney?
I think there's about 3 that I can remember.
Portuguese and English.
Colin's got 2. Sweeney's got 3. The correct answer is 5.
Wow.
The languages are English, Hungarian, Hebrew, German, and Japanese.
Okay.
I remember German and Japanese. I do remember that.
All right. Now we're going over to Andy Lacewell. Where was Gene Simmons born? What country?
In Israel.
Yeah.
Got it right. Good job.
That's right. That's right.
Andy says, I was a part of the Kiss Army too, Sweeney.
What was that question? I'm sorry.
I know
Say
it.
again.
I know it.
What country was Gene Simmons born in? And the answer was Israel.
Tennessee.
Yeah, Israel, Tennessee.
All right,
Israel.
we're going to Brent Wilson. Name the songs that Gene Simmons sings on the album Dynasty. Name all the songs that he sings on the album Dynasty.
I'm not that good.
Sweeney's smiling like
he's licking his lips right there.
Yeah. Sweeney, I'm actually going to go to Mike Watts after this if Brent gets it
Okay.
right.
Okay. And if Mike Watts is looking, that's for you, Mike Watts.
What is that?
That is me
Oh,
in
Ace
5th
Frehley
grade.
shirt.
5th grade. School picture with Ace Frehley. My mom hated it. Yeah. My mom hated that, but I loved it because I had to wear it for school picture.
Ace Frehley. That's
Hey,
awesome.
I might be a big Kiss fan, but I'm not keeping up with their albums lately. The only song I can remember Gene singing was
Hey.
Charisma.
All right, you got one answer, Brent. Is there any more?
No.
All right, so Mike, what's your answer? What songs did he sing on the album?
He sung Charisma, one of them,
Yeah.
but that's it. That's all I can remember.
All right, help him out, Sweeney.
X-Ray Eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one wasn't that great.
But he still sung it.
He still sung it. And they were both on side 2.
Yeah, that's right.
He still sung it.
He's like, it's not that great, but he still sung it. So we got Charisma and we got X-Ray Eyes.
1979.
All right, now we're going to go to our other podcast, brothers, the Night Ranger podcast called Fans in Motion. Those guys do a great job over there. If you're into Night Ranger, be sure to go to YouTube and check out Fans in Motion. We got a lot of good friends over there. Brent Walters, he's going to take it away, and he's going to talk about his admiration for Gene Simmons. So take it away, Brent.
Hi, folks. Brent Walter from the Fans in Motion Night Ranger podcast. Go to Fans in Motion on Facebook page. Sign up. If you're not a Night Ranger fan, you will be one. I'm doing this quick because this is tape number 832, and I keep having too big of a file. In any event, what does Gene Simmons mean to me? Gene is the face of KISS. Gene's the reason the religious groups hated KISS. Gene's the reason why newspapers would print their picture in the paper. Gene is just KISS. Personal story I can share about Gene. I did a meet and greet with him a few years ago, and we were talking about a large item that I have, but I didn't have the whole item. And he says, "What do you mean you don't have the whole item?" And I didn't get a chance to respond, and he starts snapping his fingers. His underling comes over and goes, "This powerful and attractive man, blah, 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 blah. Fiduciary duty, blah, blah, blah. The floor's too wet." A month later, it's on my front doorstep. The arrogant asshole that people say that Gene is and that he doesn't care about the fans, it's bullshit. He cares about the fans. He hooked me up. He was fantastic. Gene, I thank you. Criss, I thank you. Keep watching the Kiss and Tell podcast and go to Fans in Motion on Facebook. Thank you.
Well, I'm very, very jealous of Brent's guitar collection. He might be the only person I've ever known that has like 6 different guitars from the rock band KISS. And his axe, he's got the axe Kramer bass. That's really, really sweet. Way to show off, Brent. So now, right? Now we're going to take a little fun jab, poke a little fun at the demon, courtesy of the comedian Craig Gass. So let's listen to Craig Gass and his impersonation of Gene Simmons.
I think it exemplifies how great of a sense of humor Gene has about himself, which was the guy who taught me how to do the Gene Simmons impression is a friend of mine named John Vianelli. He works for the band Aerosmith, okay? He's been working for Aerosmith for 20 years. And every time we talk to each other, whenever he picks up the phone or I pick up the phone, we talk to each other like Gene Simmons. That's how we communicate with each other. John will pick up the phone and go, "Hello," and I'll go, "Hi, John. This is Gene Simmons from KISS." And I'll go, "Gene, what's up, buddy?" And I go, "You know that this..."
So way to get everybody laughing, Craig Gass. Now we're going to watch a video of Gene Simmons fails. So if you like to see people mess up and laugh about it, you'll enjoy this video right here. So we have a lot of tributes in this episode coming from all over the country, from California, Ohio, Texas, Florida, Tennessee. So Mike Watts, our one and only 100,000 watts, took some time out to play the song Parasite. Mike, tell the fans out there about your trials and tribulations this week of learning the Kiss song Parasite.
Well, I really like the rhythm and the chorus. Those were pretty easy to learn because it's really catchy and the song flows. But when I started learning the solo, Ace's solo, it took me a little while. You know, I mean, we all got full-time jobs. You can only practice so much out of the day anyway. But I got it down good enough. I think we're at 95% anyway on it. So I hope you enjoy, Kiss and Tell fans.
So with that being said, here is Mike 100,000 watts doing Parasite.
Hello, Chris. Can you see me? All right, here we go. Ready? What's up, Chris? All right, I got it.
All right, good job, Mike Watts. Way to go. Colin, you had something to say about Mike's guitar?
Yeah, I don't remember what grade we were in. Maybe 9th grade. Mike, do you remember when you got your first guitar? And I think I spent the night at your house, and you stayed up all night trying to figure out how to play that thing. And I woke up with a sore throat, sick. And I always blamed the guitar playing on getting sick. So,
The JB hey, that was the JB player, wasn't it, Mike?
Yeah.
Oh man, I remember you couldn't whammy bar it because it'd throw it out of tune every time you played it when I was up there. I remember that.
I remember that because Colin came to school and was telling everybody that Mike was such a terrible guitarist that he gave him a sore throat.
True story.
True story.
That.
I
He's
got
like-
a little bit better, Colin.
He's like, how bad a guitarist you got to be to give somebody a sore throat?
Wow.
I think I got strep throat because of his guitar playing. No, but you're so much better. You know what I appreciate about you, Mike, is that you stuck with it and you got really good at it. So good for you.
He did.
Yeah, it's a good hobby. It's a good hobby.
Now, I wish I could have been able to record Mike and Sweeney in Mike's garage jamming.
Oh, God. Wow. Yeah, the big Kmart drum set. That was wonderful.
Hey, I was a little bit better at playing guitar when me and Sweeney were jamming. I learned a little bit when we was in the garage.
Yeah, we had some good times out there. I remember that.
Yeah. I knew Smoke on the Water.
Yeah.
We knew Poison.
Yeah, talk dirty to me.
Yeah. Bad to the Bone.
So we're going to turn it over to a friend of the podcast out of Austin, Texas. His name's Frank the Tank Branham. And Frank the Tank's going to give us his tribute to the Demon. Take it away, Frank.
For me, the 1970s, Gene Simmons was an original. You definitely remember the first time you saw Kiss, and you definitely remember the first time you noticed Gene Simmons. He had the Demon makeup, the huge hair, the platform boots that just, you knew you wanted a pair, but you knew you're never going to get a pair. As a kid, seeing this was just a complete shock, and that's what lured me into rock music. They were all original, but even within Kiss, Gene was the one you wanted to be like. Ace Frehley, Peter Criss, they were all great. But when you see the outfits, Gene Simmons was the one you wanted to be like. He was the true original monster. And even when you see kids running around on Halloween to this day, you'll still see Kiss outfits. And which one do you see the most? You see the Demon, Gene Simmons. And there's a reason, because he was the coolest.
Gene Simmons is known for a lot of things, but one of the most infamous things that he's ever done is to spit blood on stage. Watch this video and see the master at work.
Well, it's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it. You want to see it? I'd love to. Watch.
Whoa. How did you do that?
Yeah, it's rough, but only the best can do it.
All right, utterly, in the words of Coach Kelly at South Fulton High School, when Mike Watt spit blood on stage. Mike, that was utterly disgusting. All right.
God.
So now we're going to turn it over to my two sons, Kyler and Brother. Brother's playing drums. Kyler's on the bass guitar. I'm on the electric guitar, and we're doing our version of God of Thunder. So please sit back and enjoy. so now we're back, and I want to talk about some legends as it concerns Gene Simmons or Kiss. And one of the legends I heard when I was a kid was that he would spit real blood. It wasn't fake blood, and it was the blood of children. So did anybody ever hear that Gene Simmons used to spit the blood of children? Anybody?
No.
No?
No. Never heard that one.
Maybe it was just my elementary school.
But here's what I heard, because people would get stories confused. They were like, people would say, Gene Simmons, he'll take bat blood and spit bat blood. And I said, no, it's Ozzy Osbourne that bit the head off of a bat. Gene spits K-Ro syrup and food color, and it said it on the Heavy Metal magazine. So, you know.
And liquid and milk and butter
is what it is.
Yeah, my most funny story of all those, you know, Ozzy and all that, is Alice Cooper once was said to have taken a chicken on stage and cut the head off the chicken and drank the blood. That was a legend that was going around. So I remember when they interviewed Alice Cooper about the chicken, and he said this. He goes, we were in some small town in the Midwest. We're playing like a carnival, state fair or whatever. And there was chickens running around everywhere because we're out in the country. And he goes, I'm from the city. I just thought chickens could fly. You know, they got wings, and I'd never been around a chicken. He said, so one of the chickens came on stage, and I picked it up, and I held it to the audience, and the audience starts going crazy. And I threw it thinking that this thing's going to start flying and take off. Well, he said the chicken went straight down into the audience. And he said the audience goes crazy, starts ripping the chicken to pieces.
Oh, my God.
Feathers and blood going everywhere. And he said, and what makes it even worse is that the first two rows of that audience were handicapped children. So the chicken was getting ripped in half by handicapped children.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty out there.
That's pretty morbid.
And I was like, wow, that's an amazing story.
That's hardcore.
Yeah, that is.
Another legend that was out there was that Gene Simmons' tongue wasn't his, that it was a cow's tongue. Did y'all ever hear that?
Yeah.
What'd you hear, Brent?
The same thing, probably from Scott.
Or Mike.
But he probably got that from Mike.
Right?
Yeah.
No, here's what Gene did. He just went to the dentist and had that bottom snip right here. It makes it an extra inch longer. Because that gets in the way when you're sticking your tongue out, like that little piece gets in the way. Your teeth do, unless you don't have any teeth. But so he snipped that, and it makes it an inch longer, just like that. Look at his some of his younger pictures on YouTube, and as soon as they was like after Kiss Alive 1, where they got some money, his tongue was longer. He snipped that piece, and that's what people do. They snip that piece right up under there. Snip it, and it'll make your tongue an inch longer.
Go on to YouTube and look up his, I guess one of their first interviews with the Mike Douglas show.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 1974.
He does it right there, and you can tell it's something odd about that.
Yeah, he does, yeah.
That was a great interview.
Yeah, I got that on DVD, actually.
Because they had that female Jewish comedian that was busting his balls.
Yeah, she
said, I just know there's a good Jewish boy under there somewhere. And I think he said something like, "Oh,
he said he said you would know." And she said, "Yeah, honey, you can't hide the hook."
Yeah, you can't hide that.
That nose, Jewish nose. It was funny. I remember it.
The last legend that I heard, and I don't know if y'all heard, is that when Van Halen very first started, the rumor going around my school was Van Halen was actually Kiss without makeup.
No, I never heard that one.
That was going around my school for a while. You know, that's really Kiss without makeup. And they just don't want nobody to know it's them.
That's a cool rumor.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
That'd be a cool rumor. I guess it's because Gene Simmons helped get them to Ted Templeton and stuff like that back in, 77 when he first introduced them to Warner Brothers.
I believe so.
So yeah.
Well,
he actually also first discovered Cinderella too, but he didn't get no recognition for it. Bon Jovi kind of boosted him a little bit more.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's going to conclude this Halloween episode of Kiss and Tell, our Hallowgene special. I want to thank Jeff Val, Brent Wilson, Jeff Sweeney, and Andy Graceful Laceful, and always Mike 100,000 Watts. This has been a great show. Oh, and Colin Cook, a.k.a. the Cookie Monster.
Yeah.
You know, it was great getting back with a lot of my old friends that we used to hang out. And even though Jeff did get me banned from Pizza Hut that one time, it was still great seeing him. And remember to rock and roll all night and listen to Kiss and Tell podcast every day. But before we go, we got the one and only Mike 100,000 Watts going to blow a little fire in honor of the man, Gene Simmons. Here we go, people. Get the... Oh!
Yeah! Yeah!
Oh!
Awesome.
Hey, that frog's on fire behind you, man. Better put out the frog, Mike.
Put the balls out.
All right.